I'm Dr. Karan Avadisyan. For more information about me and my services, you can visit my website at beekeepingservices.com. This website is mentioned also in the description part. You can leave your questions in the comment section and I'll return them in my future videos. You can also subscribe to my channel to have updated videos on beekeeping. Today I want to talk about American foulbrood. American foulbrood is a fatal bacterial disease of honeybee brood caused by the spore-forming bacterium Penibacillus larvae. It is not a stress-related disease and can infect the strongest to the weakest colony in apiary. Infected brood usually die at the prepupal or pupal stage. Heavy infections can affect most of the brood, severely weakening the colony and eventually killing it. The disease is not able to be cured, meaning that destruction of infected colonies and hives is the only way to manage American foulbrood. Although the disease is not highly contagious, bacterial spores can easily be spread between hives and apiaries through beekeeping practices such as through the exchange of equipment and movement of infected combs. Adult bees are not affected by American foulbrood but can spread spores within and between infected and cleaned hives through rubbing and drifting. Spores can remain viable for over 50 years and are very resistant to freezing and high temperatures. Therefore, the only way to manage the disease is to stop infections from occurring through adopting beekeeping best management practices. And if an American foulbrood outbreak does occur, quickly dealing with it before additional colonies become affected. American foulbrood infection starts when spores on the nurse bee's mouthparts are spread to larvae when feeding the developing brood. Only around 10 spores are required to cause an infection in a day-old larvae. A bee larva less than 24 hours old is the most susceptible stage to be infected by American foulbrood. The younger the larvae, the more susceptible and less spores required to cause infection. The disease weakens the colony, which subsequently makes the colony a target for robbing bees. The robbing bees then carry spores back to their colony, further spreading the disease and starting the cycle in a new colony. American foulbrood is a brood disease and therefore causes a range of symptoms in the brood which can be observed by beekeepers. Typical symptoms include irregular and patchy brood pattern. Cell cappings on infected brood may appear sunken, darker colored, or greasy. Closer inspection of individual cells in the advanced stage of infection will show that infected brood changes from a healthy pearly white to dark brown. The dead larva remains become a tough but brittle scale that is difficult to remove from the cell. As early of American foulbrood infections may only have one or two cells showing the disease signs, it is critically important to inspect all brood combs for early detection of the disease. In the early stages of American foulbrood infection, the adult bee population may still be quite considerable. In advanced infection stages of American foulbrood, the adult population starts declining and a large number of cells start to show the classical brood symptoms associated with the disease. Holding the comb up to the light can help as the scale stage of the disease cycle tends to reflect the light, making them visible. You can also try a ropiness test to identify. Beekeepers should conduct the ropiness test on suspect cells before the scale stage of infection. The test is as follows. Identify a suitable cell showing American foulbrood symptoms, discolored, greasy, perforated, or sunken cappings. Push a matchstick into the infected cell. Slowly withdraw the match. If the semi-fluid remains are drawn out in a 3 to 5 cm long dark brown ropy thread, it indicates the hive could be infected with American foulbrood. If the semi-fluid remains are drawn out but only form a short, usually less than 1.5 cm long, It indicates that the disease is likely to be European foulbrood. Foulbrood can be accidentally spread by beekeepers or through the natural behavior of honeybees. Beekeepers can accidentally spread the bacterial spores when infected combs or hive components are placed in non-infected hives. Spores can also be spread on tools and equipment. Equipment that has been used in infected hives should be considered infected and should not be used in non-infected hives. Honey and pollen harvested from hives with American foulbrood will contain spores. Colonies can also become infected naturally if bees within the colony rob infected hives or by honeybees drifting from infected colonies into non-infective colonies. The spores of American foulbrood are capable of surviving more than 50 years and are resistant to extreme temperature. Infected material, therefore, hive components, tool, etc., need to be burned to ensure spores are killed. There is the ability for some honeybee stocks to demonstrate an increased tolerance of American foulbrood through genetically inherited traits. This variation in susceptibility is due to differences in the hygienic ability of the honeybees, which influences their ability to detect, uncap, and remove the infected brood. Although it is beneficial to have this American foulbrood tolerant stock, these genetically inherited traits are not sufficient to manage an American foulbrood outbreak and do not offer any substantial protection to a colony, especially when beekeeping equipment may remain highly contaminated and continually reinfects colonies. Antibiotics are not recommended and are not lawful to apply in some countries to control of American foulbrood. However, some countries still use oxytetracycline, and here are the reasons why this medication is not recommended. Antibiotic use for American foulbrood infected colonies only masks the disease symptoms. It does not control the disease. Unlike European foulbrood, which does not produce a spore, American foulbrood produces a spore which is not destroyed through the use of oxytetracycline. Therefore, the inoculum source can remain in a hive and continually reinfecting colonies. Antibiotic use does not extend to the hive components, tools, or equipment, which also provides another source of reinfection for colonies. Antibiotic use can contaminate honey. Antibiotic resistance strains of American foulbrood can begin to develop. This has already started to occur in other parts of the world. For these reasons, antibiotics such as oxytetracycline should never be used to control American foulbrood. That is all for today. I hope this information was useful for you. You can also subscribe to my channel to have videos on beekeeping. Thanks for watching.